Hey guys, what's up? I'm going to review a video from Fried Mulders. My name is Carl. This guy has won over millions of hands playing Zoom 500 and probably above. I'm not familiar exactly with how high. Very high win rate. And what I like about him is he has or I'll say what I would want you guys to focus on from this guy is his thought process. This is the thought process of a seasoned pro who's put in millions of hands, so everything is very measured. You want to pay attention to the order, the frameworks he has, the ways he thinks about things. Technically speaking, this is when solvers were around, but you'd had to run your own solves, so everyone was at a much lower level than they are today, but still these are fairly high stakes. And so I feel like this kind of represents what you would see at maybe NL100 or NL200 these days in terms of technical skills. But these guys were, higher intelligence, so still fairly good execution. And yeah, going to be interesting to see. I think you will see players like these at your stakes. And yeah, let's get started and I'll comment as we go.
And in this one, I'm going to go for a slightly different format. So there have been some requests to have some one tabling play and explains. So to kind of fulfill that request.
I'll just skip ahead. So this is going to be a video where he goes over BVP hands, where he gets to the turn. So we can skip ahead there.
And a small blind, which is a regular, goes for an overbet c-bet on the flop. So it's probably fine-ish. I personally wouldn't do it here. So this is a flop that heavily favors a small blind. But I think my default strategy as a small blind here would be to go for a small-ish c-bet with a whole chunk of my range, so the 1/3 pot. According to my own studies, I think a big c-bet on this flop as a small blind is required or adds significant EV to your strategy on either an ace king something board or an ace high triple Broadway board. So ace something something where the something something is a king and a queen or a jack and a 10. So on those boards, I think we want to have a bigger, more polarized c-bet. For me, that's not going to be an overbet, but I haven't looked at it in depth. So some people might be using the overbet here as their bigger c-bet, and I'm not against that. I haven't put in the work there, and it's all small edges, so it doesn't really matter too much probably if you use 80% pot, 90% pot, or 110% pot here. But if you use a bet size that your opposition isn't used to, then you might get a small edge like that, even though from a GTO point of view, there's not a big EV gain. There might be a EV gain because you throw your opponent off, like he doesn't really know how to react versus your particular bet size. I do know how to react versus this bet size with my hand. We have a pretty easy call on the flop. And then on the turn,
I'll pause here. So I agree with uh I have to call this guy. We'll call him Carl, even though that's not the. Give me 1 second, just see the Fried. So we'll call him Fried. I'm used to my name is Carl, but yeah. So I agree with Fried. Uh, the flop bet sizing is not too important to get accurate. There's a very marginal EV gain, and the important thing is whether you play it accurately and how your opponents play against it. And yeah, him saying like he wouldn't go for this size is still an important piece of information. So he does kind of know which size he'd go on every single board. So kind of how deep do you go as a professional? And again, some guys would do this, but and go, I know the size I prefer on every single boards, and other guys would be like, I'm actually just gonna simplify. And I feel like Fried's probably doing a combination. So he simplifies some boards and then he has different sizes he prefers for others, which is very common. Um, and yeah, but it is all mapped out for him, and that's important. And now we're gonna see, I think, a spot where a lot of people who study flop c-bet sizes a lot fall short, which is what do you do on the turn, because they spend so much time on the flop strategy they might not get to the turn.